This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to Global Business, coming to you live from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. I am Peninah Karibe. Let's begin with a look at the markets. Nigeria's stock market today stopped its record rally since the beginning of this week as investors chose to take profit on large cap stocks following recent gains. Topping the losers basket at the stocks like Dangote Cement, Access Bank, Lafarge Africa, Feedson Healthcare and Zenith Bank. Cumulatively, equity investors lost 14 billion naira, around about $36.1 million at the close of trading, which helped push the market's year-to-date negative return to minus 5.73%. Coming up on the show tonight, the largest children's wear retailer in the US cancels clothing orders from suppliers in Ethiopia. The African Development Bank votes to re-elect Akinwumi Adesina for a second 5-year term as president. And the South African animators saving the planet and making waste picking in the country look cool. All right, let's start in the US, where the largest children's wear retailer, The Children's Place, has cancelled millions of dollars worth of clothing orders from suppliers in Ethiopia. The retailer attributes the cancellation of the imports to the severe impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The move has pushed companies into ballooning debt as employees face hefty pay cuts. Wages in Ethiopia are estimated at $26 a month, compared to about $95 in Bangladesh and $326 in China. Ethiopian suppliers claim that TCP has demanded refunds on products that had been shipped before the crisis. All right, our correspondent Coletta Wanjohi is following this story for us, and she joins us live from Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. Coletta, millions of dollars worth of clothing orders from suppliers in Ethiopia have been cancelled by this American retailer. It's catastrophic for the garment workers, and this coming at a time when the country is battling the COVID-19 pandemic. How much has the sector been affected?
Well, Peninah, the textile and apparel production in Ethiopia is one of the major ones in terms of investment. We see a lot of investors from Asia, from Europe, others from America that have set shop up, here in the industrial parks to be able to produce for the export market. So it has been hit hard. If we go by a research that was done by International Labour Organization in April, just a month after Ethiopia recorded COVID-19, already companies, manufacturers of textile and apparel were already talking about a reduction in capacity utilization of about 30%. Now that was in April. They were saying compared to the same time last year, they had gone down 30%. But and some were already talking about laying off workers. Others were already talking about reducing shifts, and others were complaining mainly because apart from the fact that the demand had gone very low, especially from their suppliers where they export, there was also the issue of lack of access to raw materials, and also they were forced because of low production to lay off workers, some of them, and others also because of the restrictions that were done within the country that could not allow free movement of people. Then workers, not all of them would come at the same time like before. Some had to go in shifts, reduced shifts and all that. So the impact was hard as early as a month right after the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're seeing this much later in terms of reduced income in the textile and apparel industry.
All right, and so off the back of that, we've got these cancellations, Coletta. Has there been any reaction from government in response to that?
Well, Peninah, the government had already warned because it was much prepared as early as March, and it had already spoken out to its private sector in terms of the manufacturers and all other investors to be aware and to be ready for a reduction and a shake-up of the economy, as if I would use those words. So it had already started putting some stimulus, giving some money or liquidity to the National Bank of Ethiopia to enable private banks to give loans and to give also debt relief to some of these manufacturers, including the textiles. And it has also insisted that its customs Department or its Customs Authority speed up VAT returns, and also it had spoken about and had encouraged some of these companies to change line of production and start producing COVID-related materials that would keep them in business, because at that point, then the government had said that it would reduce or remove taxes from importation of materials related to production of PPEs and other COVID-related materials, just to encourage and to keep some of these factories in business. But already it knew, because the Ethiopia Jobs Commission had predicted as early as March that about 1.4 million jobs would be lost in the next 3 months from March, and that would of course affect the textile and apparel industries greatly. So the government knew, and currently it's working with them to see how it can resuscitate business.
All right, so let's talk about this garment industry there in Ethiopia, Coletta. How big is it, and which are the main markets?
Well, the textile and apparel industry here is considered one of the biggest sources of export in terms of planning of the economy of the government here, because if you look at the Ethiopia Investment Commission, it had a plan of attracting at least $1 billion from exports from this sector. But now, according to the information that we've got from the Ethiopia Textile and Manufacturers Association, in the last fiscal year, they had attracted at least about $172 million US, and with COVID affecting production and us seeing a reduction in demand, then that $1 billion that the government was expecting this year might not happen. But we're still seeing the government investing a lot and encouraging people to try and bring up more of this textile, because Ethiopia has these industrial parks. It has a plan of having at least 20, and currently we have about 9 that are concentrating only with factories that are dealing with textile and apparel. And these have about 150 factories that have this investment. So it is a big deal for the government here. And when it is planning, then it looks at this textile and apparel industry just to make sure that it is promoted, because it is one of the sectors that it expects will boost it economically and also in terms of exports.
All right, Coletta, thank you for that update. Coletta Wanjohi live for us in Addis Ababa. And still in the country, Ethiopia's state-owned telecom provider is targeting to grow its subscriber base to more than 52 million people as it accelerates its expansion. Ethio Telecom shrugged off the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic to record $1.4 billion in revenues for the year to June 2020. This was 105% above its target. CGTN's Groom Chala with more details.
With more than 45 million subscribers at the moment, Ethio Telecom is one of the largest telecommunications service operators in Africa. Ethio Telecom's ambition is to increase more subscribers and is targeting to close the year with 52.1 million customers as it upscales its expansion and service delivery in one of Africa's fastest growing telecommunications industry.
The demand from our people for the service we provide, including internet access, is significantly increasing. That is why we have prepared our customer increment plan based on this desire from the public. Besides that, the very evolving technological advancement will also be very helpful to achieve our plans sooner.
So based on its plans, Ethio Telecom is expected to deliver mobile services from 44.5 million customers to 49.7 million. That is an 11.8% increase. Mobile internet services from 23.5 million to 27.4 million customers. That is again a 16.5% increase. The state-owned telecom company is one of the biggest corporations in Ethiopia and generates vital revenue for Africa's second most populous nation with more than 105 million people. The Addis Ababa-based government-owned company managed to collect a revenue of 47.7 billion birr. That is equivalent to 1.4 billion US. And now, with more investments set to be made on its telecom infrastructure, revenue is expected to rise even higher next year.
Based on our plan, revenue is expected to reach 55.5 billion birr, in this new budget year. That is an increase of about 16%. A 52 million customer number is also another target we have for the year, which is an increase of 13%. To achieve this and other plans, we have lots of projects at hand being implemented to improve service, accessibility, and increase customer satisfaction.
Last June, Ethiopia made an official invitation to foreign telecom operators to buy a 40% stake in Ethio Telecom. Ethiopia's telecom regulatory says it has already received a dozen applications from other telecom giants in the continent that are eyeing one of the country's most profitable state-run companies. Group Jala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
7 more dolphins have been found dead on a Mauritius beach. This comes a day after 17 carcasses were washed up near an oil spill caused by a Japanese cargo ship. The full impact of the spill is still unfolding. The results from a preliminary autopsy conducted on the dolphins showed no trace of oil in their bodies. Environmental NGO Greenpeace has called on the government of Mauritius to launch an urgent investigation to determine the cause of the deaths. Some corporate headlines now, and the African Development Bank has voted to re-elect Akinwumi Adesina for a second 5-year term as the bank's president. Adesina was running unopposed. The bank's ethics committee and an independent panel investigated whistleblowers' allegations that he had abused his office and cleared him of all wrongdoing in July. South African state defense firm Denel is not planning to seek new government equity injections despite a liquidity crunch aggravated by the coronavirus crisis. This is despite reporting a $100 million loss in the 2019-2020 financial year. Denel is one of several troubled state-owned companies in the country that have been kept afloat by government bailouts in recent years. German online takeaway food group delivery Hero is acquiring online grocery service InstaShop after almost doubling its revenues in the first half of 2020. Its takeover of InstaShop was based on a valuation of $360 million. InstaShop, which was launched in 2015, operates in the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Egypt and Lebanon and has an annual gross merchandise volume of $300 million. And British aero engine maker Rolls-Royce says it will sell assets to try to raise at least $2.6 billion. This is the firm's strategy to show up a balance sheet ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic and a slump in travel. Rolls-Royce plunged to a record loss before tax of $7.14 billion in the first half of this year. The company said it would continue to look at options to bolster its finances even after asset sales. Let's look at some of your corporate headlines. This is Global Business, coming up after the break. WorldRemit agrees to acquire Sendwave, a rapidly growing app-based remittance company. And TikTok users in Tunisia chide the US for threatening to ban the popular app.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
online money transfer company WorldRemit has agreed to acquire Sendwave, which is a rapidly growing app-based remittance company, in a cash and stock transaction. Sendwave has built a leading and rapidly growing digital remittance service. It wants to bring the instant, low-fees value proposition that their African users love to Asia and the rest of the world. Now, Ismail Ahmed is the WorldRemit's founder and executive chairman, and he joins us live from London via Skype to talk more about this. Ismail, thank you very much for your time tonight. So first off, let's talk about this deal. How much is it worth and how much market share do you expect to gain here in Africa as a result?
The two businesses have been growing fast. The two businesses have grown 50% in the 12 months ending June this year. And we expect to see this new trend created by COVID-19 to continue accelerating our digital offering. There's a very strong momentum of the shift, which started with digitalization led by Africa, and the move from cash to digital. So we see the size of the digital transactions in Africa and across the world to significantly increase from now onwards. Yeah, because as we know, remittance have been the last frontiers of the internet, and even now, majority of migrants are still going to cash locations to send money, and we think that will change now because of the risks associated with handling cash.
All right, but this hasn't really been a good year for remittances. We've seen the flows dip because of the coronavirus. We've had the World Bank predict a 20% decline in global remittances this year because of the economic crisis stemming from this COVID-19 pandemic. So what is it that informed your decision to make this acquisition in such an uncertain time?
According to the World Bank, remittances to Africa will grow by 4% in 2021. And remittances to Africa has largely remained stable compared to other regions such as Asia, which heavily rely on remittances from the Gulf, countries such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, where there is no support to migrants who have lost jobs, and many of them have come back home. So whereas Africa relies more on remittances coming from Europe and North America. And remittances are counter-cyclical, so some of the larger amounts might drop, but migrants tend to increase the number of transactions they send because of the greater need back home. So and I think that is the trend we've been seeing. So in countries where there was disruption in terms of sending cash, there was a greater shift to digital. So digital transactions have dramatically increased. And I think it's also worth noting that businesses such as WorldRemit and Sendwave have helped migrants who have moved from physical locations to digital. So we enabled them to send even smaller emergency transactions that would not have been possible when they were visiting physical locations, which often have either a minimum send amount or minimum fees, which tend sometimes to be larger than the actual send amount. So we see customers sharing family members small amounts, $5, $10 sometimes. So I think overall, particularly in African economies that have got mobile money or digitized, or digitization has been successful, we've actually seen greater amounts of funds being sent than would have been the case when transactions were all cash.
Okay, talk to us about the benefits that your clients stand to gain out of this deal.
Combining WorldRemit's extensive global payout network and Sendwave's instant zero fees or low fees creates a lot of benefits to our customers in the 150 countries where we send money to, including about 43 African countries. So we're quite excited about what the two businesses can learn from each other and the benefits that will create to our customers. And I think it's worth adding that the deal is still subject to regulatory approval, but once the deal is approved, our plan is to ensure that the two businesses remain independently in recognition of the strengths of the two businesses, but see an areas where we can learn from each other and benefit our customers.
Besides Africa, which other markets are you looking at for expansion?
I mean, we're a global business. Sendwave has been an Africa-focused business, but this is what WorldRemit brings to the deal: the extensive network, the extensive licenses, which include about 100 licenses. So the idea is to expand. Sendwave expand beyond Africa, and Sendwave has already launched their first Asian market, Bangladesh, and we expect to add to many other countries.
Ismail Ahmed, thank you very much for talking to us tonight. Now, 3 more Kenyan airlines have been banned in Tanzania as the standoff over the management of the COVID-19 pandemic between the two countries continues. The Tanzania Civil Aviation Authority issued the ban against Air Kenya Express, Fly 540 and SafariLink Aviation. This comes as China just released a statement requiring all travelers from Tanzania to obtain a negative COVID-19 certificate before entering the country. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more.
The Tanzanian Civil Aviation Authority has revealed that the basis of its decision to nullify approval for the 3 Kenyan airlines is an ongoing dispute between the two countries. Kenya and Tanzania have been in disagreement over the handling of passengers arriving from Tanzania. Kenya had excluded Tanzania from the list of countries whose nationals would allow entry upon revision of coronavirus restrictions. It's not clear why, but experts say this could be due to Tanzania not locking down or releasing COVID-19 stats frequently. Following that decision, Tanzania cancelled plans to allow the national carrier KQ or Kenya Airways to resume flights to Dar es Salaam and Zanzibar. Meanwhile, China has announced that all China-bound passengers from Tanzania would have to obtain COVID-19 negative certificates before boarding flights. The Chinese embassy has cautioned that travelers who fail to show a negative COVID-19 certificate or valid health declaration form will be denied to board the flight. According to the statement with effect from September 4th, all passengers traveling from or transiting through Tanzania to China are required to obtain COVID-19 negative certificates prior to flight departures. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Airbnb establishments in South Africa have finally been given the go-ahead to reopen for local tourists. The online home rental site was forced to close when South Africa went into lockdown at the end of March. Airbnb hosts that depended on the income have been devastated by the loss of rentals. CGTN's Sumitra Naidu takes a look at the impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on this industry.
South Africa ranks as the second most popular country worldwide when it comes to Airbnb. There's close to 400,000 hosts across the country and over 22,000 people employed by Airbnb owners, the majority of whom have lost this important income. Many have also been retrenched due to COVID-19 and the subsequent lockdown.
So the last time I had a guest at the B&B was on the 14th of March. Because we hadn't gone into full lockdown. So I haven't had a guest since then. And obviously it's impacted me negatively financially.
South Africa is now on level 2 of the lockdown. Locals can travel between provinces and all tourism establishments, including Airbnb, can reopen for business.
I'm excited that the ban has been lifted. I'm excited that I'm going to host again. Well, with the regulations, we have so much support from Airbnb. It was really bad, and not just for myself, even for my helper, the person that helps me do the cleaning and the guys that does maintenance for me. I had to cut on some expenses that I had.
Now that this industry is back in operation, Airbnb hosts are confident they will be booked up, even with the strict health and safety precautions.
The guests don't get to experience the experience that they were going to get if COVID was not there, because now I can't be there when they check in. They have to check themselves in. I think it's the new normal. We're getting used to it, and we're starting to enjoy it because we love our guests.
Unfortunately, not everyone is prepared to take the risk of reopening. The threat of contracting COVID-19 is still very real.
Now that we've gone to level 2, I have decided not to open my units up for booking, because the minute you list it, you relist it, then people can book, and there's the risk again. You want to do the business, but you also don't want the risks.
A day after the ban on interprovincial travel was lifted, national parks and travel sites were inundated with requests for bookings. South Africans were eager to get out and about after 5 months. It's a real boost for the Airbnb industry and their communities, as they benefit up to 97% of the profits. Smita Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
To Tunisia now, and TikTok users in the country believe that the popular video sharing app is a window into the world. The company is owned by Chinese firm ByteDance. Many youth in Tunisia claim they have become famous on the platform and made new friends globally. They have criticized the US threat to ban the popular app. CGTN's Adnet Shawashi brings us that story.
With over 1.5 million followers, Peninah is one of the most successful TikTok users in Tunisia and North Africa. The 24-year-old digital content creator has been making videos for over 2 years. Now she's a full-time TikTok user who spreads love and creativity through her account.
Any ordinary person can show their hidden creative side. One can act, sing, and dance. TikTok is a world of unlimited talent.
Many TikTok stars in Tunisia often produce group videos to raise awareness among their online community for important causes. The coronavirus crisis has devastated the tourism sector in the country. Khaled and Peninah are promoting tourism through their accounts. They are making videos to invite people to visit Tunisia.
Any TikTok user can make videos individually or work in groups. It's a space where people can serve noble causes through art and talent. It's very simple and easy to reach millions of people. We are serving our country through TikTok.
Khaled and his friend Peninah, as well as many TikTok users in Tunisia, have denounced the US president's threat to ban the popular app. They say the move has even encouraged more people to download and discover the app.
TikTok is a successful Chinese enterprise. Trump wants to block Chinese innovation and technology. It's a failed political maneuver. Our generation does not listen to Trump. TikTok will remain our favorite app.
The Trump so-called TikTok ban has had the opposite effect. Now, there are millions of new users, especially youths, are downloading the app. Trump cannot stop TikTok because it is a space of freedom.
TikTok has opened the door for many users to gain fame on social media and in real life. Tunisian users cling to this virtual world, which is bringing people together and embracing the principles of tolerance, diversity, and coexistence. Experts assert that TikTok's simple video making process quickly turned it into a mainstay in internet culture. Tunisian users believe that the app's popularity in the world is growing even further after Trump's threat to ban it in the US. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
The World Tourism Organization says Egypt is ready to receive international visitors. Speaking during a trip to the country's famous Giza pyramids, the body's Secretary General Zubar Pololikashvili said he aims to offer support and cooperation, as well as assess the extent to which Egypt is ready to receive international visitors. At a time when Egypt's tourism sector is struggling to attract international visitors, there is hope that the World Tourism Organization's visit can act as a symbolic stimulant to the industry. The coronavirus pandemic has been a major blow for Egypt's tourism sector, a vital source of income which accounts for up to 15% of the country's GDP.
This is a very important visit. What Zurab Pololikashvili wrote, as a person and as the World Tourism Organization representative, on social media and in newspapers, is better than what we wrote about Egypt in the past period.
It's very important to see the numbers which we have in the country, especially the main touristic destination, which is Cairo, Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada. We visited Hurghada in Cairo and we saw that all measures made by government and all protocol, sanitarian protocol, is more than ready. to compare with other destinations, and it gives us hope to say that Egypt is safe, Egypt is ready to receive again international tourists.
You're watching Global Business. Coming up after the break. China opposes the move by the US to sanction 24 companies over activities in the South China Sea. And a look at the Chinese gaming industry that has seen a spike since the beginning of the year.
No one again began holding guns. Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Recapping other headlines at this hour, coup leaders in Mali have released ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta from detention. His release is one of the demands of Mali's international partners, including France and regional bloc ECOWAS. A spokesman for the junta said Keïta has returned to his home but did not give further details. Keïta was arrested by mutinying soldiers on 18th of August, shortly after they took over power in a coup. The African Union is working with member countries to standardize COVID-19 testing procedures and ease the movement of people across the continent. This comes as more African countries reopen their economies despite an increase in coronavirus cases. Libya's internationally recognized Government of National Accord has imposed a 24-hour curfew to try and halt the spread of the coronavirus. This is in the wake of protests over corruption and the rising cost of living. The decision exempts people who need to go out for essential food or medicine. The curfew comes 3 days after protests in Tripoli and the nearby town of Zawiya began to escalate. And health officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo say a measles outbreak, which has ravaged the country since 2018, has been contained. The disease has claimed the lives of more than 7,000 children under the age of 5. The United States has sanctioned 24 Chinese companies over activities in the South China Sea. Washington says the companies helped the Chinese military construct artificial islands in the region. The firms will be barred from purchasing American products, and some Chinese officials will face U.S. visa restrictions. Beijing expressed strong opposition to the sanctions. Take a listen.
There is no reason for the US to impose illegal sanctions on Chinese companies and individuals because of their involvement in relevant domestic construction. By doing so, the US grossly interferes in China's internal affairs and violates international law and relevant norms. The move shows nothing but the US hegemony and power politics. China is firmly opposed to this. We urge the US to correct its mistake and immediately stop interfering in China's internal affairs. China will take firm measures to safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies and individuals.
Still on China and U.S. relations, China has made concessions in letting U.S. regulators audit some of its most sensitive companies. The vice chairman of the China Securities Regulatory Commission, Fang Xinghai, says China recently proposed to allow the U.S. to pick any of its state-owned enterprises for accounting inspections. That's after Beijing had previously agreed that joint inspections should begin with private firms. Fang adds that China is sincere in trying to solve the standoff over accounting issues between the two countries, while also being serious about protecting national security information. Washington recently stepped up a push to audit Chinese companies that trade in the U.S. and threatened to delist those that don't comply. The chief executive of Chinese-owned video app TikTok says he is resigning from his position. Kevin Mayer made the decision as the company comes under increasing pressure from the Trump administration over its ties to China. Mayer, a former Disney executive who helped launch Disney Plus, took over TikTok in May. Top trade official to the European Union, Phil Hogan, has resigned following allegations of breaching coronavirus guidelines. This move will force the organization to replace a key commissioner in the midst of the pandemic crisis as the final months of talks on a future deal with post-Brexit Britain approach. He has come under fire in his home country amid allegations he skirted rules that Irish citizens have to live by. The EU has consistently underscored the importance of obeying all restrictions imposed by the 27 member countries, and turning a blind eye to infractions by its own top officials would undermine that effort. The British government has come up with a scheme to encourage homebound people to eat in restaurants more often. The measure has been welcomed by residents as a way to engage with the real life and also help local businesses. Andrew Wilson has the story.
The kitchens are busy again as the Chancellor's one-month scheme delivers its $700 million handout to Britain's diners. But alongside the promise of bargain meals, people have welcomed the chance to see friends, take a break and socialise again.
We're both key workers, so we've been working quite hard over the last 6 months. So it's nice to have a bit more free time and go out and eat as a family as well.
It's pushed me more to get out and about and to also to help and support sort of smaller local businesses like we are here. I think it's really been a push for the community.
I have been to places I never would normally have been to, like just take advantage of it, you know, because lots of places are doing it, and yeah, it's been really fun.
About 80% of hospitality firms shut down in April, with 1.4 million workers furloughed, hardest hit of any sector. By and large, much of the evidence points to a success story behind the Eat Out scheme. 64 million meals claimed and counting, with restaurants describing themselves as inundated on the 3 days the discount applies. But the government's political nudge behind this may have worked as well, taking the nation from stay indoors and save lives to get out and help out. In other words, engage with real life again. Any extension of the scheme will be welcomed, but some restaurants are already considering their own discount schemes for September. Flexibility is the new key to survival.
If we get into September and it's quiet, in order to bring those people back again, I would definitely introduce something like that. Whereas if we go back to the same numbers that we were having in July, that's fine for us as a business. So I think maybe we would then do 1 day a week or something like that. But I think it's also great for us as businesses to be able to give back to our local community. A lot of people have lost their jobs.
On Monday, the government deal will probably end, and when the dust settles, it'll be clearer whether Eat Out, Help Out was a real lifesaver or just a moment of light in an otherwise bleak 2020. Andrew Wilson, CGTN, London.
And still in the UK, where a new film dubbed Tenet is being released in cinemas. Amid the pandemic and with strict safety measures taking place, many cinema managers hope the movie will help encourage more people to come to the cinemas. Here's more from London.
Many cinemas are banking on the release of a Hollywood blockbuster called Tenet and hoping it'll attract more people to return to watching the big screen again. It's the first high-profile film to be released since the COVID crisis started, and it could be a lifeline for lots of cinemas. Warner Brothers is releasing Tenet in 70 countries before it'll be shown next month in US cinemas. It's a gesture that's being welcomed by beleaguered cinemas. Director and writer Christopher Nolan is behind this espionage thriller, which has been described as a Bond film on steroids. So just how important are these big blockbusters for cinemas?
It's hugely important, I think, not only for cinemas to keep their staff employed and to keep the community entertained, but also for people that have been in lockdown. They need a release, they need a sense of something to look forward to and some entertainment.
What can you do in these COVID times to bring people back into cinemas and make them feel confident that they're going to be safe and enjoy the movies?
I think it's important to show that you are taking the situation seriously, putting in place all the correct measures to make sure that it's a safe yet enjoyable experience and communicating that clearly to your customers.
Is it difficult to plan ahead, large and small cinemas, with so many films being delayed, some of them until next year?
It's been difficult, it's been a challenge. There are the film distributors like to have their films at certain times of the year, whether it be a summer blockbuster or something that plays to half-term audiences. So there's been a lot of shuffling around, a lot of moving around, but now that we've got a big blockbuster like Tenet coming out, everything else is kind of falling into place.
Matt Whiteley, General Manager for Genesis Cinema, thank you very much indeed. And it's not just Tenet, of course, but other big films when they are released. It'll be interesting to see just how much that will boost the number of people that go into cinemas. Yolo Aptav, CGTN, East London.
This month, China's Shenzhen is marking 40 years as a special economic zone. The southern city has been a pioneer in the country's economic reform and opening up. But urbanization and development usually come at an environmental cost. Omar Khan shows us how city planners in China's Silicon Valley have kept that in mind and are ensuring a green and stable environment.
When Shenzhen comes to mind, most people often think of a city like this, a skyline lined with towering buildings within an expanding megacity. But in reality, the tech hub has ample green space. And that's not by chance, as city planners have long maintained a green vision.
Shenzhen has taken a national lead in terms of ecological and environmental protection. This includes resource and spatial planning. Back in 2005, we drew up a standard ecological control line, which were the first among major cities in China.
The Futian Mangrove Ecological Park is one example of Shenzhen's efforts in supporting environmental protection. According to environmentalists, China's mangrove forests, which act as a buffer between land and sea, have been on the decline over the past century. But in the last 2 decades, there's been a reverse in that trend.
The park's main contribution to Shenzhen, the most basic function you could say, is to protect coastal areas. Its other function is to purify cedar and sequester carbon. The park is a good example of ecological preservation here in Shenzhen. When it comes to the rapid development of the city, we take the initiative to control open sprawl, space, in construction.
But how has Shenzhen managed this balancing act of becoming an economic powerhouse while still retaining a lush presence?
It's precisely because of our ecological control measures that there is self-restraint when it comes to the development of Shenzhen. All industries and enterprises are limited to the land they can occupy, including high energy and water consumption. We are focused on innovating and improving how we go about industrial development.
It's not an easy task managing the environment, living space for residents, and continuing Shenzhen's robust economy. But even for scenic tourist locations like Wutong Mountain, ensuring the preservation of the natural habitat is priority number 1.
Wutong Mountain is quite significant given that it's a primitive and natural forest that extends all the way to Hong Kong. It's Shenzhen's most important wildlife resource and accounts for nearly 80% of all natural resources. So from an ecological protection point of view, it's vital to the habitat and environment.
Having seen 40 years of remarkable economic growth, the question for the future is if Shenzhen can keep moving forward, all whilst maintaining its natural beauty. Omar Khan, CGTN, Shenzhen.
The nearby city of Shantou has been classified as a special economic zone together with Shenzhen, Zhuhai and Xiamen since the 1980s. But it's long been outperformed by its peers. Things could be changing though. Official data shows the city's GDP reaching $2.45 billion in 2019, a more than 6% increase year on year. CGTN's Lucy Rui has more.
Shantou is a city in the eastern corner of Guangdong province, and it may finally be on the path to reaching its full potential. The city's GDP is now 200 times the number 40 years ago, but it's long been outperformed by China's other special economic zones. Still, it's currently witnessing strong growth. Behind it, experts say it's the result of a tighter connection between the city and its surroundings.
90年代末沈海高速公路通车前，都是我们上头往珠三角的唯一的一个公路通道。它这个路80年代还是个沙土路，这几年是经过90年代的一轮升级改造以及这几年的那个扩建，实际上现在的通行能力已经得到了比较有效的提升。
As other Chinese cities rapidly developed in the 1990s, Shantou became one of the first to build highways. But the city started lagging behind other first-class cities. Until 2014, when authorities in Shantou started to aggressively build new roads. From 2014 to 2019, the city built 5 major highways with a total combined distance of more than 200 kilometers. And now they're building more, with the goal of further improving connectivity.
这一条是上藏高速公路，它是东西走向的。这个高速公路是我们上头往粤港澳大湾区北部的一个通道。建成之后，我们上头往粤港澳大湾区的时间是能缩短大概半个小时左右。然后我们所在的这一条是南北向的，是潮汕黄线高速公路，它是把我们上头往粤港澳大湾区北部、中部、南部的3条高速公路给串联起来。
Experts say more highways are only the first step in Shantou realizing its full potential. But with the city becoming more and more integrated with other key engines in China's growth, there's no doubt the city is working hard to open the floodgates to opportunity. Lucy Rui, CGTN, Shantou, Guangdong Province.
China's International Fair for Trade in Services kicks off in September. There have been a range of emerging service industries that have become key drivers of growth. Today, we look at the online gaming industry, which has seen a spike in business since the start of the year. But some experts say the success could be short-lived. Feng Yilei finds out how industry insiders have been trying to ward off the negative impact of COVID-19 while keeping up with the new trends.
Recurrent COVID-19 outbreaks continue to haunt multiple industries, including the public entertainment sector. And more people in the virtual space now see social contact as a necessary yet scarce resource. For a gamer like Liu Yize, more online meetups with friends mean more daily hours spent on video games and more expenses.
Almost everyone was panicky and terrified in such a depressing environment, so meeting up online with friends to play some games and talk about all these things can somehow help distract you from the pandemic.
China's gaming sector was seeing a downturn since 2018, so the rise in the demand has been a welcome boost. It has also brought benefits to other internet-based sectors like live streaming and esports. A number of Chinese gaming developers, such as Perfect World, can attest to this. Its CEO believes such growth will be for the long run, as the pandemic has forced them to make some innovative moves.
We do see that the behavior changes of people. So we have to speed up our online development in terms of different product types, in terms of how to engage people in a way they get used to. The education sector is a good example in terms of seeing acceleration of online application. For the games, for the other sectors, it's the same thing,
Keeping up with online trends has included reshaping esports competitions. Some popular events that usually take place in stadiums have been moved online for public health safety.
We're providing more refined experience online, which is different than before. We have to invest in more on the technology side, more bandwidth, more servers, better angle of broadcasting. We have to create more new points to attract people, not only a plain screen of of broadcasting.
That has required game developers and distributors to look to new technologies such as 5G. 5G-enabled tech in gaming can allow spectators to interact in a game with immersive virtual reality. It can also allow esports players to train using artificial intelligence, and cloud-based gaming has already been in full swing, following partnerships between game developers and 5G providers.
On the cloud, and then everywhere with 5G access, you can use different devices to play the same game, which is unimaginable before. So cloud game would see a surge in the next, let's say, year or two. It's the very first one who, utilizing the 5G, started to impact people's life, and the game market will start to see, variations.
Experts predict that the future will shift the focus back from gaming tech and software to a game's fundamental features, such as its quality and storyline. And the implications of games have also been re-examined amid the pandemic.
I hope we're not only producing games, but also we're producing that opportunity for younger people around the world to be engaged and to maintain happiness. You can take your team to conquer all these enemies. I think that's spiritually very encouraging to people. We had a video taken using all these virtual heroes in the Dota. In the video, they're fighting some evil, and the evil is called COVID-19. We can have this encouraging words embedded into regular games.
Feng Yilei, CGTN, Beijing.
Still on gaming, Europe's biggest video game event, Gamescom, is expected to turn digital for the first time in its history due to the coronavirus pandemic. The German Games Industry Association has announced plans to stage a digital-only event with live-streamed shows and online esports competitions. During this time of the year, the sprawling event space would usually be a hive of activity, preparing to welcome about 370,000 visitors to Europe's biggest video game event. The event is expected to adhere to the strict coronavirus guidelines.
Gamescom going purely digital this year is a great opportunity for the further development of this event. Our concept was that everything we develop now should be ready for a hybrid event in the future. This means that everything we do now will help us to play the digital world of tomorrow with Gamescom, and at the same time, of course, hopefully be able to celebrate the games here again in the future together with the fans. And that's why I believe that the fact that we dare to get Gamescom up and running is also an important fact for its further development.
Let's go through the commodity markets. Oil prices fell today as a massive hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico made landfall in the heart of the U.S. oil industry, forcing oil rigs and refineries to shut down. Brent crude futures for October, which expires tomorrow, fell 64 cents or 1.4% to $45 a barrel by 1500 GMT. The storm has shut 84% of Gulf production and 12% U.S. refining capacity. You're watching Global Business, coming up after the break. Meet the animators in South Africa saving the planet and making waste picking look cool.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
A group of South African animators are on a mission to save the planet. The young creatives have come up with a game called Dobadash, based on the real-life stories of local waste pickers who are commonly referred to as street surfers. Trash collectors earn very little and live in abject poverty, but their contribution in keeping waste out of the environment is crucial. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Street surfers dashing around with their trolleys collecting trash is unique to South Africa. They keep 80 tons of paper and plastic out of oceans and landfill sites. A heroic effort that inspired young game developer Thabo Tsolo to create Dobadash.
The game is a combat racing game, Similar to Mario Kart. So what you do is you assume the role of a street surfer and you race around the city collecting trash, and the trash counts as points within the game and also as a weapon system. For example, a paper, you can use it as a paper plane, which is a tracking missile, and it hits the other players, and all of that you're doing it just so you can be number one in the race and collect all the trash.
Global warming is one of this century's biggest environmental challenges. The team are hoping the use of augmented reality will make the game fun and encourage South Africans to take recycling more seriously.
So we have plans to develop the game to such a place that literally you have an app on your phone that you can go and scan trash that you may find on the street or in your home. You scan the barcode and then you scan also you throwing it away. And from that, already now we're incentivizing recycling and we're teaching a behavior.
Space Salad Studios plan to take its creation global, but it may be tough competing against popular applications such as Subway Surfers and Minion Rush.
The story about recycling just gives us an advantage over these other games, you know. The games are just fun, you know. There's no deeper meaning or story, you know. Like, I feel the advantage that we have over these games and how we stand to compete against these games is people are actively taking a change in preserving the future of their planet.
We have such rich stories, rich characters. It's not simply just, you know, taking a representation and putting a person on the card. Even the stories of the characters are so rich. So we know that that is going to hit a nerve with anyone who may not know about this culture. And it's a little bit of a peephole into what we experience here in South Africa.
Dopper Dash will get its big break later this year when it's put to the test by South Africans at Comic-Con Africa. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Many countries across Africa went into lockdown when the world declared a global coronavirus pandemic. This triggered a moment of panic and desperation for most people on the continent. But a Nigerian sculptor decided to use this period for inspiration by turning food into art. CGTN's Terry Wangari has more.
These sculptures replicate landmarks from various countries in the world. They were created using one of the world's favorite dishes, spaghetti. The non-edible sculptures are painstakingly put together by Lagos-based visual artist and sculptor Aderintomiwa Oyatomi.
I just want to show the world that these places are great architectural pieces because it's beautiful and they are made with, great techniques, because they are kind of very different from every other thing that we know. And the second thing is just want to relate to people about these places where you can visit when you get to this exact country.
His first pasta-inspired sculpture was a replica of the Eiffel Tower. He created it in March, the first month of Nigeria's lockdown due to the novel coronavirus. The 33-year-old has since created over 5 global landmarks using over 25,000 strands of spaghetti. And while many people don't agree with his use of food for art, it's the message behind it that matters most.
People thinking my kind of art is waste is maybe they don't really have the knowledge of what I'm trying to show to people. What I'm just trying to show to people is just an expression that even if you are fragile, you can still stand when you are being close together. When you can hold yourself together, then you can still stand.
The Nigerian sculptor also hopes that his art will remind people of exciting destinations to visit after movement restrictions are eased. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
And finally, a look at the currencies. South Africa's rand weakened ahead of the release of the Producer Price Index, which gives more clues about inflation dynamics in Africa's most industrialized economy. At 6:32 GMT, the rand traded at 16.92 versus the dollar, 0.3% weaker than its previous close. It later ended the day at 17.04 to the dollar. And that's how we wrap up Global Business tonight. We welcome your feedback. Send it to the contacts on the screen and follow us on our digital media platform. I'm Peninah Karibe. Thanks for watching.